Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our AI4I AMA Live session number 4. We'll get started at 12 o'clock as usual. We have a new Discord server, so you can see it in the QR code. Oh, I'm going to add it to the description as well. The video description, let me just add it there. Okay, I've updated the video description, the stream description. So you can click on that to join our Discord server. It is limited to AI4I learners, so just join the AI4I learners. We heard that you guys like to have a sense of community, so we created the Discord server. I believe that my volume should be okay. I've tested just now. If there's any issue with the audios, just let me know in the chat and I'll be able to adjust accordingly. Right. We'll get started at 12 as per usual until 2 p.m. Thanks for joining me during your lunchtime. I'm your host Ishan here. Give me a short moment while I change the screen and edit something. Yeah, looks about right. Yeah, we're looking to build a nice big community for all the AI4I learners. So everybody can have a good time learning together. You feel that motivation when you're learning together with your cohort mates, together with other people in Singapore, and even around the world. We do have some registrations from overseas. A number of registrations from several different companies. as per usual, if you have any questions, just type them directly into the chat. If you are watching this from the Makerspace forum, please click on the video title, the stream title. It will bring you to YouTube, where you can have access to the chat. Make sure you can access the chat. If you have not said hi before, I'd appreciate it if you just say hi, so I can get to know you, and you can get more involved into your own learning as well. We'll get started in just a few minutes. If you have any friends who are also in the same program in AI4I, regardless of which batch they are, feel free to get them to join in. The data camp progress is not reflected automatically in Makerspace. This is asked by Lawrence Kwok. That's correct. The data camp progress is actually not tied to Makerspace. In fact, our position is that the data camp progress is your main learning resource, but you feel free to use whatever other learning resources you have online to learn about the topics which we bring to you in the AI4I course. Yeah. So it's not actually necessary to complete the data camp progress unless you are in one of the older batches, batch 4. If you are after batch 4, it's actually not compulsory to complete the data camp courses. Yeah, it's not reflected automatically in Makerspace. Hi everyone who just joined in. We'll get started very shortly. As per usual, this is our lunchtime hour, AI4I AMA Live. Feel free to ask any questions you have right in the chat, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. If not, then we will get back to you. I'm just setting up a quick poll to see what kind of exercises you guys are most interested in for this session, outside of the questions that we're going to answer. Okay, I've set up the poll. I'm just going to put it right in the I'm just going to put it right into the live chat, and you guys can answer in the poll and see what you are interested in, and we'll probably go with the most popular option. Lawrence Kwok, you mentioned that you didn't see your progress in Makerspace, and then you got an email from your admin. Oh, your progress in Makerspace. So in Makerspace, you got to mark complete for each lesson. You got to make sure you hit the green button, mark complete. Mark complete for each lesson which you have completed. And then, yep, when you've completed everything, then the course will be complete. All right. So, yes, I've put the link into our into the live chat. Let's go to that. All right. Right. And as mentioned earlier, for those who just joined, the AI4I, we have a new feature, which is the Discord server. I'm sure a lot of people have already been using Discord, and we've created a Discord server specifically for AI4I learners. So you get to talk with all your fellow learners, ask questions over there, share resources, catch up with where everybody is up to. We may make other features as well. So for example, like allowing you guys to form your own groups, so you can learn in your own groups. Yeah. So whatever it's best to help you guys have the motivation and the best environment for continuing and learning in your machine learning journey. All right. Looks like we have just a few votes so far. I'm sure people are just still trickling in. Anyway, I do understand that now is your lunch hour, so we understand that you guys can pop in and out anytime you want. So yeah, feel free to pop in and out whenever you want. Yeah, it's just a casual hangout session. Any questions you have, just ask them right in the chat, and I'll try to answer them. I see a question from Wee Kian Ng. Hi, Ishan, it says. Regarding laptops for ML, deep learning, can we share considerations for CPU, GPU? Okay, so to me, I don't think that there is a big consideration for CPU or GPU. At least I'm not particularly nuanced in this area. I'm not particularly an expert in this area, but for what my learning is that it's not particularly important, because number one, most of your learning when you're learning machine learning, you're generally not dealing in gigantic resource intensive training. You're not doing resource intensive training, machine learning training. And for those cases where you are doing intensive machine learning training and intensive computation, what is very popular now is that you just do the training online. You do cloud training. So you push your code onto a server, either Amazon, AWS, Azure, or Google, and then you get one of their CPUs to do the intensive training and come back with the results. That's a very common method nowadays. So to me, I don't think that there is any very special considerations for CPU and GPU. But good question. Thanks for the question, Wee Kian Ng. Okay, so I think anybody else wants to add on to the poll, then please just click in and add on. If not, it seems like we will try to do something new this time. In the past few weeks, we have been doing data camp exercises. And we are aware that there are a number of you who are still in the early stages of the course. You're still learning Python for the first time. But let's do something new this week, as in the majority of people have decided. We're going to do a Kaggle notebook review. Let's go to Kaggle. Kaggle.com. Okay. So, what is Kaggle.com? First of all, right? Kaggle.com is pretty much the home of data science. It's the home of data science. Okay. So it's a place where people come to share their data science notebooks, the code to generate visualizations, to do data exploration, to create ML training models, and all of that fun stuff. It's a place for people to share data sets. It's a place for people to compete, a place for companies to put up bounties, actual money, to the community to see who can get the most accurate model. Yeah, it's a place for all of these things, and discussion as well. So what we can do right now is we can look at, and also another good thing about Kaggle is that it's very easy for you to create your own notebook. So let's say I want to create a notebook. Just click on notebooks on the left side. Click on new notebook. Click on new notebook. For those who are again new to the course, welcome to AI4I. And a notebook is not one of those paper things that you buy at Swiggle. Smiggle, is it? It's not one of those paper things you buy at Smiggle. It is actually what we refer to as a Jupyter notebook. And it's a way to write Python code and execute Python code. And intermix it with comments very easily and beautifully. Okay. So now we say new notebook, Python. Yes, that's correct. Notebook is the first type. Yep. And we create. Very simple. Yes. And once I create it, immediately I have an environment where I can type Python code and run Python code. Right. So the first cell. So how Jupyter notebooks work, if you're not familiar, is that each of these boxes is a cell, and you can run the code in these boxes independently of other boxes. So the first cell is this code. Again, this hex sign says that this line is commented out. So this is not actually code to the computer, it's just for human reading. It's telling you some information about this code and about this notebook, blah, 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 blah. So the parts which are actually code, this part, import NumPy, import Pandas. These are the basic things that they do for you at the start. So to run a cell, you hold Control, you press Enter, or you hold Shift and you press Enter. So, or you can just click this button. Usually I just do Shift Enter. When you do Shift Enter, it runs the cell. It brings your selection to the next cell. Okay, so now you can definitely confirm that you can type Python code in here and then see the output. So you can see print 5 and it says 5. Great. Not a groundbreaking stuff, but it's a great place for us to do some learning. Any votes? No. Okay, great. Okay. Yeah. If you've just joined us in the chat in the session, feel free to say hi in the live chat. Say hi to your fellow learners, and also make sure to join our Discord. The link is in the description to this stream. If you can't see the description, that means you're not watching on YouTube. Please click the link, and you can watch this on YouTube so that you can click on the description and join our Discord server. Okay. Great. So let's go to some actual notebooks of other people. Okay, our notebook playground. Our notebook playground. Now I'm gonna go to another Kaggle notebook and find something interesting. Hey, Peiyun Chung. Nice to see you and happy Wednesday to you. Thanks for joining us. Okay. Notebooks. We'll find some interesting, highly ranked notebooks to play around with and explore. So let's see something suitable for all levels. So hopefully, those who are already well versed in Python can learn something. Those who are new to Python can also learn something. Right? That's the best outcome. Because we do understand that a lot of people who are actually new to Python in the audience for sure. If you're new to Python, say in the comments, type in the comments, or type in the chat. Type in the chat. Okay, let's do most votes, and we'll do categories. Tags, beginner tag, beginner tag. Introduction to CNN Keras, top 6%, blah, blah. I don't think that we should start with CNN Keras. Exploring survival on the Titanic. Okay, how about we do that? Yes, let's do that. Exploring survival on the Titanic. In fact, I've given lectures on this with this data set before as well, so I'll be a little bit more familiar with this. Another very easy thing you can do for learning, machine learning and data science in general, when you're on Kaggle, is to, when you click on a notebook, somebody else's notebook, look at the top right, just copy and edit, right? So we can just click on it, boom. It allows us to make a copy of that notebook and play around with it ourselves, run the code ourselves. Let me see. Why is it that it is all in different? It's all in one big cell. Let me see. Why is everything in one big cell? Let me go back quickly. Yeah, he put everything in one big cell. It's not very easy to play around with. Shall we continue with this package or something else? Wait, this isn't even Python. My mistake. Yeah, my mistake. This isn't even Python, so we shouldn't be using this. Right. Okay. I think that was R. Make sure it's Python. Okay. This most votes. No, it wasn't R. It's RM. Oh, it's. Ah, yeah, it was R code with Markdown. Machine learning tutorial for beginners. Sure. Yep. If you have just joined us, welcome to AI4I Live session number 4. And if you have any questions, just put them directly in the chat and I'll be able to see them and answer them on the spot. If you have any requests for any data camp exercises you want to go through, also just put it in the chat. We'll check them out as well. Okay. For now, we have some votes that we want to do a notebook review on Kaggle. Kaggle is the home of data science. We'll try and do it this time. Okay, let's copy and edit this guy. Okay, great. Okay, so data scientist, blah blah blah. And this, so you can see in Kaggle and in a Jupyter notebook, there's two kind of modes for each cell. When there's either the code kind of cells, which look like this. So this is a code cell, and there's also a markdown cell. Yeah, it's a markdown cell. A markdown is basically just text, or not code. Yeah, stuff that is not code. Stuff that is used to complement the code. Okay. Here, we can see there's, when we look at a markdown cell, and then you press enter. When you press enter, you get to edit the cell, so it looks like this. When you evaluate the cell, when you run the cell, for if it's a markdown cell, then you'll see how it actually looks, which is like this, with all the links and everything. Okay. So yeah, if you want to do markdown, some of the basic things you do in markdown are, for example, to make things bold, you surround them in 2 asterisks to get the markdown, to get bold text. So this is bold text. To get headers, you use hex signs. If you have more hex signs, it means a smaller header. More hex signs means a smaller header. These are all the standard things. If you want to create a list, you just need a number, dot, and then space, number dot space, number dot space. You see here it's everything 1 dot, 1 dot, 1 dot, 1 dot, 1 dot. But when you actually run it, you'll see that it's a proper numbered list. You see here it's a proper numbered list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, there's just some basics where we have right now. We'll continue on to more interesting machine learning stuff. Yeah, we can see all the different number of hexes gives you different sized headers. Okay. Different sized headers, Yep. To make sublists, you just press tab. So for example, here we go press tab, and blah blah blah, blah blah blah, a sub header. And you just, so this will all be a numbered list, numbered list. All right, great. And so you can see actually that Kaggle has a ton of resources as well, and I would definitely encourage you guys to not just check out the exercises on DataCamp that we've linked to within AI4I. Also check out different resources like YouTube. Check out Kaggle. Check out all the different resources, and take the best from each of them. We are always trying to improve the AI4I materials as well and supplement them. Okay, so this is the first code block that we see. It is pretty much a standard code block from when you create a notebook on Kaggle. And he adds on a few more things. Okay, the first line we have is import numpy as np. For those who are new to Python, again, when you import something, we import code. It allows you to use that code into your directly in your code. Use other people's code inside your code. Right? You use other functions using other variables inside your code. And then when you do import numpy as np, so you get to use their code, and normally you use their code by doing like numpy dot something, blah blah blah. But if you have imported as np, then you'll be doing np dot blah blah blah. Right. So that's the difference. And this is just the standard way of importing numpy and pandas. We also have a standard way of importing matplotlib, the matplotlib library. and as you import as plt. And we also, another commonly imported library, the library is a bunch of modules, is Seaborn. So Seaborn, what is Seaborn? If you know what Seaborn is, please type in the chat. We should have more activity in the chat, it'll be more lively. Also make sure join our Discord and chat in the Discord as well. We'll be sending out emails to all the Makerspace users to join the Discord and have fun learning together. But you guys are going to be the first ones to get to join the Discord, so please do so. Yeah, so Seaborn is a library to do data visualization, to plot graphs and charts and very interesting charts. Then you'll ask me, isn't that what matplotlib is for? Yeah, isn't that what matplot library is for? So the answer is yes. Seaborn is actually a more beautiful version of matplot library with reasonable and meaningful defaults already set in. All right, and then blah blah blah. Import warnings is just something you do in the notebooks. And these are all pretty standard stuff. So they just make it easier for you to use the notebook and cleaner for you to use the notebook. Here it says from subprocess import check underscore output. This is the second way to import code into your. In fact, I believe the screen is probably too small. Let me zoom in a bit. Okay. You see from subprocess import check underscore output. This is a way for you to run commands on the computer and get the output. Okay, get the output. So for example, let's say I do cmd, then here let me do ls. Of course I can't do ls because it's not a Mac or a Unix computer. So if I do dir, then it says here blah blah blah, right? It says it shows me all of this output. It's all of this output, right? So if I were, yeah, it's the same as if I do check output. So if I do check output, it allows me to run this command, which is ls. It runs ls on the computer, and then it shows the output. It prints out the output. Okay, it prints out the output. Okay. So now you can see here, when we print check output, it shows these two files. So these two are the files which appear when you run ls on the shell, basically the shell. So which computer are we talking about here? Is this your own computer? Answer is no. You should be quite clear on this. Answer is no. When you do ls here, what is actually happening is, for those who don't actually, let me take one step back. ls is a command that is used on Unix computers. So there's Windows computers, then there's Unix computers. Okay, so if you run ls on a Unix computer, you show all of the files and directories at your current location. If you're using the shell. Okay? The shell is like when you use cmd. There's a shell. Okay. So when you do ls, it actually runs ls on a computer owned by Kaggle. A computer that's owned by Kaggle. So Kaggle is actually running this notebook on one of their computers, and you are just connecting to that computer. So when you do ls, you are just running ls on their computer. That's all that's happening. Okay. Yeah, so ls won't show what is on your computer, it will show what is on their computer. Okay, let's continue on. So for those who have really advanced further into AI4I, You already have learned about Pandas, you have learned about sklearn, and you have probably learned about a bunch of this as well. But here we get to see probably more of it put together in a whole notebook. Okay, so here again, as usual, when you see hex, this is a comment. Please don't be confused. Just now I mentioned that if you see hex, right, what's after that is the header. That's only if the cell is a markdown cell. If it's a markdown cell, then this will be a header. If not, then this will be a comment. Comment as in is not code. Not code. How do you change a cell from markdown to code and from code to markdown? You can see when you click on the right side, the 3 dots here, it says change cell to markdown. If I change the cell to markdown, it looks like this. Completely wrong. Absolutely wrong. This is absolutely not what we want, so we just right click here and change cell to code. Okay. I'm sure there's other ways as well to change the cell to markdown, and let me see whether the usual shortcuts work. Nope. I believe on your own Jupyter notebook, I think it's Control Y and Control M to change it to markdown and to code. Yeah, but on Kaggle it's different. They use different shortcuts, I guess. So anyway, let's continue on. So here, this is a comment, blah blah blah. We read the CSV. CSV files are just comma separated value files. So let me show you what I mean by that. Give me a second. Give me a second while I open this up. As usual, if you've just joined us, welcome, and feel free to join in the chat. Feel free to join in the chat. Okay. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, here I am in a program which should be very familiar to you. Hey Sanka Cherakuri, welcome to the AI4I live session. Hope you're having a nice Wednesday afternoon, lunchtime. Okay, so now we're in a program which hopefully you're familiar with. This is Visual Studio Code. It's the text editor which I most recommend. Make sure you just download it. It's completely free. It allows you to type code very easily and very beautifully and very quickly. And most importantly, it makes you look very cool and your friends think that, hey, you have become a programmer. Okay. So here, what I did is on the left side, when you've opened a project folder, you just you can right click, create a new file. So I create a new file. I call it first.csv. Okay, this first.csv. And then I type A, B, comma, C, D, E, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Oh, let me just do 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'll save this. I'll save this. And then review in File Explorer. Okay, and then if I double click on this, you'll notice that it opens up in Excel. So very commonly, your CSV files are probably linked to Excel if you're using Windows. So we double click on it, you open it in Excel, because CSV is just a way to store tabular data in a table. So you can see A, B, C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, 4. And how this corresponds is that each comma separates values in the first row. Okay, so there's the first column, second column, third column, fourth column, fifth column, so on and so forth. You press enter, this goes to the next row. And very easy, just like that. And CSV is a very common way in which we store data, which is why we are learning. Most machine learning tutorials, they often store data in CSV, and then when you load them in, you use this function, which is pd.readCSV. Right, for those who are new to Python, I'm probably going too fast. If you need me to slow down, please say so in the chat, and I will try to slow down and clarify anything you don't understand. But what's happening here is that we are getting the read CSV function from the Pandas module, from the Pandas library. You'll often hear these terms interchange. Module, library, they're all basically just code that you import, right? Code that you import from other people so you can use their functions. So when I do read CSV, what happens is that it will read the CSV file at this path. And if you are new to computers, you should probably look up what a path means. But anyway, so it's basically like the address at this address. So the file at this address is called column _2c _wika.csv blah 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 and blah blah blah. Okay, and this is where you can find it. From this current directory, move up one directory. That's what these two dots mean. Then after that, look in the input folder. Then look for this file and read this file, which is a CSV file, and load it as a Pandas data frame. The Pandas data frame is the main way that we store data, tabular data in Pandas, and also in machine learning in general. Okay, so we have Pandas data frame, and then it will be stored into a variable called data. Okay, so if you're new to Python again, if you see this equal sign, it means that is the assignment operator. You look on the right side of the assignment operator, you evaluate that, so you turn it into a data frame. The data frame type of information. You put it into a box and you call the box data. Alright, let's continue. In Python, there are some ML libraries like sklearn, Keras, TensorFlow. We'll use sklearn. Yep. So TensorFlow and Keras, they are for deep learning, and CNN, which is other types of machine learning. But the most simple to use at the start is definitely going to be sklearn. We're going to learn sklearn. So supervised learning. Okay, so this is just how you type. This is how you create your own notebooks. Make sure again at the start to make the header you do access, and then yep, access. Yep. If you want to make bullets, you can use stars. You can use stars, or you can use actually any. Most symbols can make bullets, but you just need to use the same symbol and be consistent. And then usually the notebook will be smart enough to realize, hey, you want to make bullets, you'll create bullets for you. Let's continue on. Okay, so now we have this data.head. So it's this very good example right now. So when you see errors, don't panic, just read the error. Which part of the error do you read? You read the first part of the error, you get super confused. Trace back, blah blah blah, you have no idea what this even means. Don't read the first part of the error, read the last line of the error. Okay, so when I click on this cell, I did Shift Enter. Shift Enter, that runs the cell and moves to the next cell. So we click on this cell and we run it. You read the last line of the error, it says name error. This is what type of error is it? It's a name error. Name is the name of a variable. Name of the variable. It says name data is not defined. Okay? That's because this data is a variable. It's a variable name, but we have not defined any information inside this variable. Right? We have not defined information inside this variable. Then you ask me, hey Yisheng, didn't we define it inside here? Like, we'll read the CSV and then after it we'll put it into the variable. Yes, but the thing is, being an idiot, I did not run this cell. So I'm going to click here now. I'm going to do Shift Enter, and then this is now done. How you can tell it's actually done is that you can see on the left side, it says 4. Is this 4? This 4 means that it has been run. It is the 4th cell to be run. It's the 4th cell to be run. I see some new people joining in the chat. Welcome to the AI4I live session. Please join the Discord server. It is a new server specifically for AI4I learners, for you guys to learn together as a community. Any questions you can ask over there. You want to join, form groups over there for community learning. Small groups as well. Keep up your motivation. It's a great way to continue your learning in AI4I. Okay, so now you can see this 4. We have run this as the 4th cell. It's run already. So that means data now actually has some information. It has some information inside, some data inside, okay, which is the data frame. We turn this into a data frame, put it into data. So now we can try and run this again. Shift, enter. And now we get something here. What do we have here? So we see here, we see pelvic incidence, we see pelvic tilt, numeric, lumbar, lordosis, angle. Clearly this is some very technical bio information, biological information. And then we see rows, okay, we'll see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let me just go through quickly for those who are newer. What's happening here is that data, for those for who are newer, definitely we want, I understand that there are a lot of people who are more experienced and already know this, but there's also a lot of people who don't know the basics, so I have to go through the basics. Okay, so if you have any specific things, more advanced things you want me to go through, maybe in a future session we will have more. We'll devote one whole session to do something more advanced for the more advanced learners. Okay. So here we do data.head. Data.head. What happens is data is a data frame. Data frame is a table of data. Table of data. Okay, and this table of data, we do dot head. Head is a function which is connected to data frames. It's also called a method. Okay? It's called the head method. Okay, so you're running the head function on this variable data. And to call the variable, not to call the variable, to call the function. To call a function means to run the function, to run the code, the instructions inside the function. You use the parenthesis, open and close parenthesis. Okay? Open, close parenthesis. Any inputs go inside the parenthesis. Here there's no inputs, so it's just empty. Open, then close. But it's still mandatory to have the open and close parenthesis. So what .head does, it shows you the head of the data, i.e. the top of the data, the first few rows of the data. Here we show you the first 5 rows. If you have no inputs, it shows you the first 5 rows. If you want to see first 20 rows, you do 20 inside. It shows you the first 20 rows, what the first 20 rows look like. Just give you an idea of what the data looks like in your data frame. It's the first thing that most data science people will do to a data frame. They'll do .head, they'll do .info, a few other things. Okay. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is the index of the row. Index of the row, i.e. the address of the row, the number of the row. Notice that the first row starts with index 0. Okay, note this. So, and then there's all these columns of data, pelvic incidence, pelvic underscore tilt, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. Okay, continue on. Data.info, this is very important thing that I also always do. Data info. Why is it important? It shows you a lot of information very quickly. So it shows you that this is it has 310 entries, i.e. it has 310 rows. Okay? Normally, to find out the rows, we also, another thing people do is to use, okay, and before, let me go back one step. To create a new cell, what I normally do is to use A or B. Okay? First, you make sure you are in selection mode, the cell selection mode. So how you do that? you see that I have this blinking cursor here. That means I'm in the edit mode. I'm in the cell editing mode. Okay, cell editing mode. I press escape. There's no more blinking cursor. So now I'm in the cell selection mode. When I press up and down, I move to different cells. Okay, so now I can press B to create a new cell below the selected cell just now. Why is it below? Because I press B. If I want to create it above, I press A. A for above, B for below. Okay. If you want to remove a cell, to delete a cell, you just press X. X for cut. Okay. X for cut. So now I create a new cell below, command, and I press enter to go and edit the cell. Okay. If you have just joined us in the chat, please say hi and thanks for joining us during your lunchtime. So a common way that people do it is also to use shape. Okay, data.shape. What this shows you is the shape of the data. When we talk about shape in data science and machine learning, it's how many rows are there and how many columns are there. How many rows and how many columns. So there's first one is the number of rows, 310 rows, and there's 7 columns. 7 columns, okay, 310 rows, 7 columns. Each row is telling you about one, what they call observation of data. And 7 rows is 7 pieces of information about that observation. Okay, so now, when I do data.info, it shows me 310 entries. Yes, and then it shows me the columns, the data columns. There's 7 columns. First one, pelvic incidence is the name of it. 310 entries. So it's possible that sometimes there are some columns, right, which don't have 310 entries because there's missing values, right? But this one tells you, hey, there's 310 entries, and the type of data inside is float 64. Float 64. Okay? Float. Now this sounds very computer sciencey already. But let me try and break it down for you, for those who are newer. So float is what we, in human language, we normally term it as a decimal. So you scroll up again, you see these are decimal numbers. So these are what we call floats. Okay? They're also called floating numbers in computer science. So floats. So these are all floats. And then 64 tells us about how much. It's not very important information, but basically it's saying that 64 bits are used to capture each piece of each number. So this floating number, this decimal number, uses 64 bits of data to save it. 64 bits of data to save this number. 4 bits of data to save this number. Each one is 64, or maybe it's up to 64, something like that. Maybe it's not very important. But sometimes you might see maybe float 32. That means that they are using less space on your computer to save that number. So what that means is that you can't save a very, very gigantic large number, or either that or the decimal number that you save won't be as precise. But in general, for common usage, this doesn't matter at all. Okay, and then last one, you see, these are all floats. You see class. Class, it says object. So object is different from float 64. Object, when you see object here, usually it means it's a string. A string as in a text input. The text input here, you see abnormal. All the first 20 rows have class equals abnormal. Class is abnormal. Okay, let's continue on. As you can see, blah blah blah. Length is 310. Yep. The length of the data frame is basically the how many rows are there. Okay. Blah blah blah. Yes, another thing we can use is describe. Very common thing we use is describe. So .describe. I think you also will learn this in your data camp exercises. Sorry, there is a airplane flying overhead right now. Let me just mute myself for maybe 10 seconds. Okay, I think the airplane has passed, so it should be okay now. Hopefully the renovation upstairs has either finished or will not continue while we are doing our session. If you have any questions about anything that I'm teaching or any questions about AI4I at all, just feel free to put it in the YouTube live chat. If you don't know where's the YouTube live chat, probably you're watching on the forum, please click on the stream title and head to YouTube so you can access the chat. Okay, so data.describe shows us some basic information about the numeric columns inside our dataset. So these are all the numeric columns, the 6 numeric columns. Remember, there's one column which was class, right? It says abnormal or normal, right? It's all normal, but yeah. So that's text data. Text data, so we don't see it inside describe. We only see numerical data, numerical column data inside describe. Shows you the count, how many pieces of data there are. If there's any missing data, it will show here. It will be less than 310. Mean is the average. STD is standard deviation. Minimum value, maximum value, and the different percentages of values. Right, so this is the 50th percentile of value is 58, right? So all this is useful information to just get a sense of the distribution of numbers in the distribution and like the key statistics of numbers in your dataset. Okay, let's continue on. It says here we can do a pd dot. Okay. Now this is getting a bit more interesting. The first thing you see here is a try to recall those who are learning in your AI4I course. If you've already gone through this before, try to recall what this is. If you've seen this before, this is a list comprehension. We actually went through this in the last AI4I live, the coding session. This is a list comprehension. It's a way to create lists. Okay? It's a way to create lists. Okay, so, and this is quite a tricky list comprehension. Okay, but anyway, let's look at list comprehension. And then yeah, let's learn about this list comprehension. One of the reasons why I mentioned in the last lesson that it's important to learn about list comprehension is because it's often used in the wild. In the wild, as in by other programmers. It's often used by other Python programmers. So even if you don't like to use list comprehensions, it's important to learn them so you can understand other people's code. Okay, so let's understand this list comprehension. If you understand this list comprehension, please put in the chat, and yeah, good job to you. And say hi in the chat. Yeah, if not, then we'll go through this quickly. Okay, again, you see this equal sign. This is the assignment operator. It is not the equal sign as in left side equals to right side. No, it's not. It's the assignment operator. So you look, whenever you see the assignment operator in Python, you look at the right side first. You evaluate the entire right side, and then you put that into a box and you call it a left side, color list. Put it in the box, call it color list. So now all we need to do is look at the right side. Right side is one long piece of jumble, right? But in a list comprehension, there's always a fixed kind of a pattern, a fixed structure. Looks like there's another airplane flying overhead. Now let's try to, hopefully you can still hear me. If not, let me know in the chat. Okay, so there's always a fixed structure to a list comprehension. Okay, so look at the word for. In a list comprehension, there's always the word for. Okay, in list comprehension, generally the pattern is A for my let me just make the general rule for the general pattern of list comprehensions. My func A for A in my list. If blah blah. Okay, so this is kind of like the general rule for list comprehensions. Okay. When I read this, I also know that it can be daunting if you are new. Okay. It can be daunting if you're new. Let me think of what's the best way to explain this. What's the best way to explain this? What's the best way to explain this? Okay, let me just. I think the best way for me to explain this, right, is to show you what it looks like without using list comprehensions. Okay. So in this theoretical example, how it looks like is something like put goes to this. Okay. This comprehension. First, we instantiate or we create an empty list, so like this, output. Then we will add items to this empty list based on some other list, okay? some original list that we have. Okay? So for A in my list, so for each item in my list, so this is a list of list data. So list data has lots of items. We call each item A. For each item in the list, if my condition A equals true. For those who are better in Python, you'll know that it's equals true is not necessary, but I'll just put it here for clarity's sake. If this is true, then we will do output dot append A, or we'll output dot my func A. My func stands for my function. Okay. Some function you modify A in some way, and then you add that to the list. After you have done all of this, you have created a list called output. A list called output with all of these modified A's, all of these modified items from my list. So all this nonsense is summarized in one line in a list comprehension like this. So in this exact same way, if we were to write this color list without a list comprehension, it's just like this. Right? Color list equals to an empty list. Then for I in data.loc, this class, if I equals to abnormal, append color list dot append red, else color list append green. Okay. In fact, this is not just using list comprehensions, it's also using Python ternary statement, which is basically a fancy way of saying a shorthand if statement. A shorthand if statement. Okay, this way of writing is a shorthand if statement. So this value is usually red. This value will be red if this condition is correct. If this condition is true, so if I is abnormal, then this value will be red, else the value will be green. So if the row is abnormal, we'll add red to the list, else we'll add green to the list. And we'll do that for each item in data.loc class. So what is this data.loc class? Right, so again, in Pandas, when we have this data, right? So I do data. You see all this data here, right? So when we do data.loc, and I do this, what happens is it shows this data.loc is a way for us to locate, or yeah, it's for us to locate certain data in our data set. Is to locate the data in our data set. That's what I normally think of LOC as, locate. Okay? There's another way which is called ILOC, which is locate using the index, which is the I. Okay? Locate index. So what is this locate, and then why is it not using parentheses? It's not using, normally you see it would be parentheses, correct? But here we're using square brackets. And even more confusing, inside square brackets we have a colon and then a comma and a colon. Okay, so what's happening here is that this is the rows that we want. These are all the rows that we want. So we want the 0th row all the way to the last row. All the way to the last row. If you want to start from the 0th row, you don't need to put in the 0th row. If you want to select all the way until the last row, you don't need to put in the last row, which is why you just put in the colon. So colon by itself means I want all the rows. And then when I have a comma here, this means that this is the rows, this is the columns that I want. When I put a colon here, it means that I want all of the columns of data. Okay. If I just want class, then I can do this, right? I type class, the string class, and then it will give me just the class, all of the columns. You see normal at the end. It shows me all of the columns, but only their class, only the class, right? Only the class. Okay. So let's say I only want the first 50. Only want the first 50 items, first 50 rows. I can do this. So Shift Enter. See, it shows me only 0 up to 50. You can see that. All right. In fact, here we have 51 because it starts from 0 all the way up to the row which has an index which is exactly 50. If you want to get exactly 50 rows, you should use ilog, which gives you up to the 50th row. Okay, but anyway, I won't go through this in too much detail. So now to delete this cell, I don't want to use this cell anymore. I'll press Escape, press X to delete the cell. Right. Okay, so now we have this data.loc. You know what it is really? It's a list. It's kind of a list-like structure of data, which is either normal or abnormal. Okay, most of them should be, actually I'm not sure whether most of them are abnormal or normal. How do you find out what is the distribution of normal or abnormal? Right. If you have done the Pandas exercise for this in DataCamp, you should know that it should be data.class value counts. Usually I get the syntax wrong in the first try, so not surprising. Yeah. Okay, so value counts. So data with the square bracket class, the string class here, when you have the word class and surrounded by this inverted commas, this is a string. It's a string of characters. So basically, this is talking about this exact word class. So I'm talking about the class column here. I take the class column and I check the counts of the different values. So there are 210 counts, 210 rows with the value abnormal, 100 rows with the value normal. So that's that. So when we do this, we look through all of these 310 rows. If it's abnormal, we will add red. If the value is not abnormal, we add green. And keep repeating it 310 times. So this will loop over 310 times. Any questions in the chat? Any questions in the chat? If not, then I'll continue. Okay, so now this hopefully, if you're at some level of Python, maybe this will make some sense to you. If not, you can just feel free to re-watch this part of the explanation, and hopefully it'll make more sense to you. When we do dot append, this is to add this value to the list. So this is a list, it's an empty list here. We do dot append this, we will add red to the end of the list. You're new to Python. Okay, yes, so that's done. So I've explained this part. The next line is again more interesting. pd.plotting. pd.plotting is a submodule within Pandas. If you remember what PD is, PD is what we imported. It's how we imported Pandas. For those who just joined in, welcome to AI4I live session number 4. I'm Isham, and we have created a Discord for all of our AI4I learners. Please join that. The link is in the description in the stream. Click on it and you will get to join the AI4I Discord. We'll be sending out the Discord link to all of our learners shortly, probably today or tomorrow. You guys are going to be the first ones to join the Discord, so please do so. It's going to be a place where you guys can ask questions, share resources, and maybe even form groups to have a better learning experience together. Okay, so this pd.plotting is a submodule which allows us to do plotting of data. Plotting of data is to draw it, put it onto charts and graphs, so we can visualize the data and make sense of it in a more understandable way, rather than all just numbers and text. Right? Sometimes we look at data, we can make more sense of it. So here we have data.loc. Again, we have learned about data.loc is how we locate data, right? We get a subset of the data. We don't want all of the data, we want some of the data, we do data.loc. Again, this then we do square brackets. Okay, square brackets, close square brackets. Then we have colon. Colon here means we want all of the rows. So we want all of the rows from which columns? Which columns do we want? We want all the columns as long as it's not class. So if it's not class, then we want it. Okay, columns, not class, then we want it. And then we will do a scatter matrix. A scatter plot will probably use a scatter plot. To be honest, I don't normally use this way of plotting data. We'll see what this does when we run this. And then when we do plt.show, so all of these are just parameters, inputs to the function. So when you see this pd.plotting.scatter matrix, for those who are new to Python, you see that there's so this is a open parenthesis. So this tells you this scatter matrix is a function. Everything here is within the parenthesis. So these are all inputs to the function. All inputs to the function. This is the closing parenthesis to match this parenthesis. So these are all inputs. This is the first input. What we want to plot, this is the data we want to plot. Then C equals to color list. C is going to be the probably the colors. Okay, the colors. Fixed size, the figure size, how big you want the plot to be, what the diagonal should be called. Is it? I'm not very sure what diagonal means. Alpha, how transparent you want it to be. S, not very sure. Marker equals star. Edge color black. And so these are just different inputs to change how the graph will look like. Okay. Then we do plt.show. If you don't do plt.show, your graph won't actually show up. Your chart won't actually show up. So make sure you do plt.show. Then we do shift, enter. Okay, then if you recall what PLT is how we imported our matplot library.pyplot PLT. Okay, let's scroll down now and look at the chart that we've plotted. So we can see blah blah blah. Pelvic incidence. Okay, let me zoom out a little bit. Pelvic incidence. So this is the distribution of the pelvic incidences. Okay, so now this is maybe quite confusing for you guys again. So now we have 36 different charts. 36 different charts. There's 6 rows of 6 charts each. Okay, and the columns and the rows, yeah, x-axis and y-axis, x-axis and y-axis, they are showing the different features, the different columns in our data. Okay, so the pelvic incidence here and the pelvic incidence here. So basically, we're just showing here is just going to show the distribution of the pelvic incidence. Distribution of pelvic incidence of the data, okay? So I'm not 100% sure what this data is meaning. Let me see if I can find out what this data is. Let's look at it. Where can you find what data is? Okay, this one. Biomechanical. So if you go to on the right side, you can see data. You can click on this guy, and then you can see all this stuff. Where exactly is this from? File path. I wonder if this is actually let's not use this one. Machine learning tutorial for beginners. Search that one. I believe you're using this one, yeah. So you can click on this data set using data from biomechanical features of orthopedic patients. Click on this to go to the data set itself. So each data set also has its own page, so you can understand the data. When you're working with data, it's very, very important to understand what the numbers mean. Because as humans, right, we see numbers and we don't understand them. We need to have meaning to the numbers. Then it's better for us to understand them. We need to make sense of numbers and data. Okay. For those who just joined us, please say hi in the chat. Welcome to AI4I Live session number 4. And thanks for joining us during your lunchtime. Any questions about the course? Any questions about the course, please just feel free to put them right in the chat, in the YouTube chat, and I'll be able to see them and answer them directly. Right now, we're going through a Kaggle notebook as requested by people in the chat. In fact, let me see whether it's been updated. Oh, some people are like me to go through DataCamp Pandas exercises. Anyway, we'll see if we have time later on. We might do that, or we might go through some Python exercises as well. Okay, so anyway, now we are looking at the biomechanical features of orthopedic patients. This is the data set we're looking at. And then I believe we are looking at pelvic incidence. What does this mean? So to see what it actually means, where do I look at it? Data. Pelvic incidence. No, not metadata. Data. Yeah, normally in the description here, normally in the description of the dataset, they'll show you they'll tell you exactly what the numbers mean or what the columns mean. So for example, pelvic incidence, I don't know what that means. And I don't know what units my data is in. So I can't really make sense of it. Let me try and look at the data again. So it says the pelvic incidence here is 63. The average is about 60. Pelvic incidence is average about 60. So if you want to be more diligent with your data and your understanding of the task, you should Google what pelvic incidence means. For me, I won't Google about pelvic incidence right now. I don't want to make any typo and cause any embarrassing situations. So we will just treat it as this is probably something like and I don't know. It's something to do with your pelvis. All right. Okay. Okay. So this showing you the distributions of the pelvic incidence values. The distributions of the pelvic incidence values. So you can see most of them are actually wait, let me see this. Pelvic incidence 50, 100. Pelvic incidence 100. Yeah, it's showing that okay, so the actual values are down here. So 50 and 60 is the average, right? 60 is the average of pelvic incidence. So this is how many results are near 60. 60 probably right? 60 mm. Then here it's like 50 or 40 mm. It's like it's like 55 mm. It's probably 65 mm, and so on and so forth. And some people have very large pelvic incidence. Very large pelvic incidence. Okay, and then what is this chart next to it? This is when we compare pelvic incidence to pelvic tilt numeric, and then the greens are the ones who are normal, and the reds are the ones who are abnormal. Okay, so those who are normal, they seem to be more of clustering around this area, where their pelvic incidence is around 60, 60 to 70, or 50 to 70, or even 40 to 70, looks like this area. And it looks like they are usually clustering on this area, which is having a pelvic tilt of about maybe 5 to 15, right? So this area. So this is how you read the graphs, how you read the charts when you're using this type of a scattered matrix. Okay. Just do one more example. Let's say you're looking at this one, lumbar lordosis angle and degree of spondylolisthesis. Okay. Let's say I'm looking at these two values. Those people who are normal, who end up being normal, generally have very, very low degree of spondylolisthesis, right? Because they're on the left side of the graph. On the left side of the graph, people who are abnormal, they're spreading out up here. And they also tend to have a higher lumbar lordosis angle. You see here? So this is what we can see from this type of graphs. Yeah. Okay, so now we can see SNS.count plot. This is different types of plots that we can see. Count plot, this is just like when I'm doing value counts. Exactly, yeah. You can see value counts. So value counts shows us there's 210 people who are abnormal, 210 data points which are abnormal, and 100 data points which are normal. Those who have just joined us in the chat, please feel free to just feel free to say hi in the YouTube chat. And I hope you guys are having a lovely Wednesday lunchtime and afternoon. If you want to see the counts in a nice tabular form, you can use sns.countplot. SNS is how we imported our Seaborn library. Now, if you ask me why is Seaborn imported as SNS, this is a very good question. It is because the person who wrote this Seaborn library is just a person like you and me. Anybody can write a library, but it just happened that Seaborn became very popular. the person who wrote this Seaborn library, he particularly liked this character on some show. I think it's called The West Wing, and he liked one of the characters whose name is abbreviated as SNS, which is why he made the standard to import it as SNS, which is really confusing for newbies because there's no part of SNS in Seaborn. Okay, there's no part of SNS in Seaborn. I mean, there is S, then there's an N in the end of Seaborn. Then where's the last S, right? It's confusing. Anyway, let's move on. So SNS is Seaborn. In Seaborn, there is a count plot function. Then you do x equals class. X is the x-axis, and then data equals data. Data equals data. Yeah. It's not just the x-axis. It is what is the thing that you're counting. What are the values that you're counting? We are counting the values of class, the different values of class. Okay, so abnormal and normal. K nearest neighbors. Okay, K nearest neighbors is a way for us to do a lot of things. Okay, here it looks like they're going to use K nearest neighbors as an algorithm to classify, to predict and classify data points as normal or abnormal. Okay, so we'll be using this to create a model which will say, hey, is this patient with all these numbers, is he abnormal or is he normal? Right? Is he normal or is he abnormal? Right. So what we are going to do here is first import the classifier from sklearn.neighbor. So this is the sklearn library. There's the neighbors submodule, and then you import this function. Function is k neighbors classifier. When you hear this word k neighbors, all these things, don't be too confused. It's just a type of algorithm. Okay, it can be used to cluster values together, cluster data points together. It can be used to do classifying as well. As in classifying, as in putting your data points into different categories. Okay. So anyway, here is KNN. KNN is not the KNN we normally have in Singapore. It's something else. Right? It's K nearest neighbors. K neighbors classifier. And here, n neighbors is just a parameter that you can choose. Neighbors equals 3 is quite common. X, Y equals to all of. Okay, so again here, there's a good chance for me to talk about variable assignment, I guess. Okay. Normally, when we look at variable assignment, it's when we see this equal sign here. We look at the right side, we evaluate the right side, we take the whole right side, put it into a box, and call the box some kind of a variable. But here now we have two variables on the left side, x and y. So what happens is that on the right side, there's actually two values. And these two values are going to be put into these two boxes, x and y. So the first value here, you see there's a comma here. Comma here telling you that actually this is one value and this is one value. Okay. So this value, we're going to put it into x. And then this value, we're going to put it into y. Okay. Behind the scenes, for those who are actually more proficient in Python, actually what's happening here is that the right side is actually still one type of data. It looks like there's two values there, right? But actually it's only one value. Does anybody who's proficient in Python, you know what type of data is on the right side? What type of data on the right side? How can there be a type of data on the right side? Isn't it just two pieces of data and then there's a comma? Right? Anybody knows what type of data is on the right side? What type of data is on the right side? I give you guys 5 seconds. That was just what. Anybody who knows? Don't have. Okay, so right side, right, is actually a tuple. It's actually a tuple. It's probably the thing that you learned when you're learning Python, but then you never really use it. It's what happens when you have a parenthesis around your items. the parenthesis is actually optional. So here the parenthesis is not shown, is removed. So actually there's a tuple here with two items. This first item and second item, separated by a comma. And then this tuple will be what they call unpacked. You're going to do tuple unpacking into these two values, into these two variables. So the first value will go into x, second value will go into y, which is actually what's happening behind the scenes here. For me, what I normally like to do is actually just keep it simple. Just put them into two separate lines. Right? Why not? Right? So this up here is exactly the same as. Sorry, it's exactly the same as this. Exactly the same. Exactly the same. Okay. So you can do this way, and you can do this way. Okay. So this way, you're just saying x is this, is everything which is not class. So x, for those who are new to machine learning, supervised learning, x is what we is usually the features in our machine learning model. The features are also called the inputs, or I should call it the inputs. The inputs are also called the features. Inputs as in, what information does a model need to use to predict whether this patient is normal or abnormal? So what information does he need? He needs, our model will use this 6 information. It will use pelvic incidence, pelvic tilt numeric, it will use lumbar lordosis angle, sacral slope, pelvic radius, degree spondylolisthesis. All of these 6 pieces of information, he is going to use all of them as inputs in the model to predict whether this patient is normal or abnormal. If abnormal, we better send him a letter, tell him to come visit the hospital for a second checkup, see whether anything wrong with him. Okay. So y is the what we call the output of the model. It's also commonly called the target. So x is the features, y is the target. So x is often going to be many features. Y is always going to be one target, one thing that we're going to be output. Y is going to be one thing, okay? So here the output is going to be the class, whether it is normal or abnormal. Then here knn.fit is how we train the model. Training the model is to train the model so that the model, okay, let me go back into the same analogy I always use. So the model is a little kid that you're trying to train to solve problems, right? So this model, we're calling it KNN because it's the k nearest neighbors model. Okay? It's using the k nearest neighbors algorithm, so we call it KNN. So KNN, we give him, we train him using 10-year series. We train him using the 10-year series. The 10-year series is all the inputs that he will see, all the questions he will see. You see all these questions. When you see lumbar incidence of blah 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 blah, actually the answer is that this patient is normal. Okay. Then after that, you give him 310 of these samples, and you let him learn using this method of learning. And then k nearest neighbors is the way that he's going to learn. The way he's going to train. It's what I call model training. After this has been completed, the model is now trained and ready to do predictions. Okay, this is what supervised learning is all about. So it can do predictions, so we'll do knn.predict x. So x, it will predict x, and then we can store them as the predictions. Okay. So if we run this, it will show us all the predictions. Abnormal, normal, blah blah blah. So it shows us the list of all the predictions given all the inputs. Okay, so these are all the inputs, which is x. Okay, so we trained him on all of these questions. Then after that, we ask him to predict the outputs based on these inputs. Okay, and then these are his answers. For those who are more astute, you probably recall that in the last session, we learned about train test split, and we didn't do that here. I mean, this is just a example exercise only. But in proper machine learning, usually we will do some kind of a train test split or a k-fold cross-validation. Okay? If you don't know what that is, don't worry, just Google. That's all. Just chill and Google. Okay, let's continue onwards. Okay, so but anyway, what do these predictions mean? It means if you see this list of predictions, there should be 310 predictions here. It's saying that the first patient, he predicts that it's abnormal. Second patient, abnormal. Third patient, abnormal. All these normal, abnormal. All these other predictions for each row. That's how you interpret this. Okay, blah blah blah. Okay, great. Now we see train test split. Exactly what I was talking about. So now if we do train test split, we see something more interesting. Again, for more about train test split, you can go to the forum link. If you don't see the forum link, you should have received an email today, which had the link for the session today. In that email, you should see something like for the info about the more sessions, click here. That will bring you to the forum topic, which is the permanent forum topic for all of our AI4I live sessions. In that forum topic, let me actually bring it up. Because this is the topic. I'm going to copy and paste it into the chat as well. Okay. Yeah, so here you can see all of the past sessions as well. Unfortunately, I think session number 3, our audio was not so good because we were doing it in a new location. So please forgive us for that. Some of the earlier sessions, some audio may not be perfect as well. But you should be able to learn more about train test split in our session number 3. Okay. Anyway, I'll just go through it briefly. Train test split is a way for us to split our training and test data. Because when we train our model, our little kid, we train the little kid on this data. We give him on a 10-year series, correct? We give him on a 10-year series to learn and learn and learn about how to detect abnormal and normal patients. But when we test him to see how well he has learned this concept, right? How well he's learned to distinguish normal and abnormal patients, we shouldn't give him the exact same questions from the 10-year series, right? Because he will just spit out the exact same answers, or it will affect how it will affect. It's not that he will spit out the exact same answers, but it will affect how he answers the questions. Affect how he answers questions. It's not a good representation of how accurate, how well he learned the concepts of distinguishing between normal and abnormal patients. Okay. So now we're splitting the train test data. Okay. So from sklearn.model selection, this is the submodule. We have train test split. We import this train test split function. For those who are joining us new, who just joined us, thanks for joining us during your lunchtime. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Wednesday. It's nearly 1:30. We'll be continuing on until 2 p.m. We're doing a Kaggle notebook review, going through some live code that's actually on Kaggle. And also important announcement is that we have a new Discord server for all of our AI4I learners. Regardless of which batch of learner you are in, you can all join the Discord server to connect with your fellow learners, find more learning resources, ask questions. You can even go there to find groups to learn together, to progress together. Maybe you find someone who's near your age range, get more motivation to learn together. Okay. So anyway, let's continue. Okay, so now we do train test split. This train test split allows us to split our training data into our X and Y. X is the features, our inputs, and Y is the outputs. It splits our inputs and outputs into training inputs, testing inputs, training outputs, and testing outputs. Okay, so then when we train it with fit, we will train it with the train data. When we test our train the model, when we test the little kid, we don't test him with the same questions that he studied, right? Not very good test. So we're going to test him with new questions that he has not seen before. So in X test he has never seen before. We don't give him answers. We don't give him Y, the Y test. We will compare his answers, which is prediction, to Y test. Using the knn.score function, we score it. So we compare his answers to the actual answers to see the accuracy. And we see the accuracy is 0.86, 86% correct. So based on his answers, 86% of the time he got the answer correct, whether it's an abnormal patient or a normal patient. Okay, so that's that. So is 86% accuracy good? Blah blah blah. Okay, so now we look at this neighbor np.a range. What are they trying to do here? Accuracy. Right. Okay. So now here is just showing you what happens if you use different numbers of neighbors. Okay? Different number of neighbors. So here, neighbor is just going to be a variable. Here we have equal sign. So whenever you see the equal sign, is the assignment operator in Python. Look at the right side, evaluate the right side, put it into a box and call it this. Call it neighbor. Neighbor is an arbitrary variable name. Any kind of name that you want to call it. You can call it Powerpuff Girls or Nasi Lemak also can, no problem. So anyway, on the right side here is np.arange. Okay, now this is starting to get confusing. What is this np.arange? If you recall, we imported numpy as np. So that's what np is. It's numpy. Numpy is a library to do all sorts of functions with numbers. And it's often used for generating numbers as well. So here, a range, I believe it's going to be a range of numbers from 1 to 25, if I'm not wrong. So how do you double check? Again, I've already created my own copy of this notebook. So I can always do it myself. I can always do np.arange. Just copy this code and run it. And it shows me, hey, 1 to 24. To be honest, it wasn't necessary to do a range. You can just do range. And if you look over this range, you also get for I in range, you also get the same thing. 1 to 24. Right. So yeah, different people do things different ways, but it's okay. And as long as everybody understands what everybody else is doing, then it's all good. Okay. If you have any questions, again, as usual, please ask in the live chat below. It doesn't have to be related to what we're doing right now. It can be related to anything in AI4I, any feedback, any problems in understanding any concepts you don't understand. Just let us know. Any questions about the Discord server, also put it right in the chat and I'll answer it. Even admin questions, just let me know. And I can forward on to the relevant personnel. So anyway, here we have a range of numbers from 1 to 25 is the neighbors. Train accuracy, test accuracy, blah blah blah. And then we're going to train the model using the X-train and the training data and training inputs and training outputs with different values of k. Different values of k. Different values of nearest neighbors and nearest neighbors. So the n nearest neighbors is input to the k neighbors classifier function. So when we are training with this k nearest neighbors algorithm, we need to give it an input. This input is n neighbors. Okay? So if we give it different inputs, the output model, the trained model will be different. And this is what we're trying to see here. Train accuracy, test accuracy. And after that, we'll do the test accuracy and train accuracy, which is just comparing the outputs, the test outputs to the compare the test outputs to the predictions. Right, it looks like it's the predictions. So we'll do that, and then we will plot a graph of all the different trained models and compare their testing and training accuracy. So Shift Enter, and we'll run this. Okay, so now we can see the accuracy. Okay. Testing accuracy looks like it generally increases when you increase the number of neighbors. And the training accuracy looks like it decreases when you increase the number of neighbors. More important is the testing accuracy, right? Because the training accuracy is data that they've already seen before. So anyway, I'll focus on the testing accuracy, which is the red line here. Red line here. A bit too small. That didn't become any bigger. Yeah. So the red line here, testing accuracy. So it was probably the maximum around 18 neighbors. Okay, but probably around this range. Looks like kind of a sweet spot. So kind of a stable area. So like 13 to 18 neighbors. Right? Best accuracy was 18 neighbors. So yeah, so this is one way that you can, what we call, optimize the hyperparameters. The hyperparameters are the parameters that go into your algorithm when you're training the model. You're training the model. Again, I understand that a lot of you in the audience, probably that you're still new to Python. So a lot of this still doesn't even make sense. You're not even at this stage yet. But just try to follow along and ask any questions if you have any questions. I'll also go through some of the basic things. So again, as I mentioned just now, if you see this plt dot whatever, so these are functions or methods. Yeah, but these are functions. Okay, plt is the matplotlib library. Matplotlib.pyplot library is for us to plot graphs and charts. All these are to change different parts of the chart. Add a legend, to add a title, add x-axis label. X-axis label is just this label. X-axis is the label. And y-axis label, and so on and so forth. Okay, continue. Regression. Okay, I think it's now 1:40. We've spent some time to go through this simple Kaggle notebook. Hopefully it's been interesting for you guys. Let's also go through what you guys, the second thing that you guys are interested in is data camp pandas exercises. Let's go through some pandas on data camp. If you have any other special requests on what to go through, just let me know in the chat as well. Or if you just say hi to your fellow learners in the chat, that will be very nice. Hope you guys are all having a lovely afternoon. If you guys having finished your lunch, have to go back to work, can say bye-bye. Thanks for joining us anyway. We'll finish this session proper at 2 p.m. So we'll go to Pandas. Pandas Foundations, sure. Continue course. And again, Pandas is a library in Python. So it's a collection of functions to make Python, to do more things in Python. Be able to, for you to do more things in Python. Okay, and it's the core, one of the core libraries that you need to learn when you are working with data. Yeah, when you're working with data science, Pandas is one of the core libraries that you need to learn. So, inspecting your data, blah, blah, blah. What's the question here? Select the correct answer for the first and last values in the year and total population columns. So to look at the first and last values, you can do df. So df is always the name of your data frame. I mean, it's the standard name of your data frame. Usually when you create a data frame, you call it df, because that's the abbreviation, data frame. Right. So df here is very difficult to see. Let's do df dot. How about if we do df? I can't type. Okay, df year. Okay, great. Df year. And then we do dot hit. And we do hit number 1. Great. Hit number 1. Hit 1. It just shows us the first entry, the first row. Okay, first row. Again, for those who are just joining us in the chat, please join us in the Discord server. We have a brand new Discord server. We're going to spread the word to all of our Makerspace users. You guys are going to be the first to join, so please join, and you find a nice community to progress in AI4I with your fellow learners. Okay, so hit, you can do it like this. If I want to find the year and also the total population, I can put total population here. Right, so I can see year, total population. So df, and then square bracket. Within the square bracket, you put another square bracket, which is a list of the column names that you want to get. So year, total population. Right, then you get year, then you do dot hit 1, the first row. First row. In fact, I don't even think you need to do dot hit 1. You can just do. You can just do 0, I think. No, you can't do 0. Okay, never mind. Yeah, dot hit 1. Then to get the last one, you just do dot tail 1. Right. Then from here, you can get answers. So 160. And then last is 2014. Yep, submit answer. Good. If you have just joined us, please say hi in the chat. I'd love to hear from you all. I always like to hear from the learners. Any kind of feedback, the audio is not good, video is not good, you don't like my face, want me to put on a different shirt, just let me know in the chat below. Let's go on to data frame data types. So df, you can look at the data frame. Again, here, when we see an error here, don't be afraid. When I type df dot, it's a typo. So don't look at all this stuff at the top. The more stuff at the top you look at, the more confused you get. Always look at the last line of the errors. What you can also do is copy the last line, paste it into Google. Paste it into Google, and then I'm not able to paste it. No, copy it properly. Yeah, paste it into Google, and then you'll find something about this error. Common reasons for syntax errors. Okay. Syntax error is basically a grammar error in your code. You have a grammar error, so the computer doesn't understand what you're trying to do. That's why it says invalid syntax. Your grammar not correct. Huh? That's why it's good to be a grammar Nazi. So anyway, let's continue. Here, okay, select the best description of this dataset from the following. Okay, so one thing we can do here is to do df.info. Yes, we should also mention here. So the data, there's 5 columns. There are 13,374 rows. Country name, the country code, year, population, urban population. And then we also have, the urban population is as a percentage of the total. These are in floats, these are integers. int stands for integer. It also means a whole number. It can be a negative whole number as well. So object is usually a string, text, some words. Okay, so Data is of all of type float64. That's not correct. You can see there's some not type float64. Second one, of mixed type, yes. 9914 is missing. That's not correct. You can see most of it is still here. The data of mixed type in 3460 float64s are missing. Yes, that looks correct. So you can see there's some missing data here. These are the number of entries of this data. All of them match the total number of entries, except for this total population. Looks like there's about 3,000 missing float64 numbers. So this should be my answer. Okay, great. Okay, so NumPy and Pandas working together. Import NumPy. When you import NumPy, always import NumPy as NP. Standard way to import NumPy. Even if you don't like to use NP, you should use it because that's what everyone else does. So it's best for everybody to be able to understand each other. Okay, sorry, that seems to be another plane flying above. Let me mute myself for a few seconds. Okay, seems to be a little bit better now. So let's just follow the instructions. Import NumPy as NP. Sure, that's done. Oh, it seems to be still quite noisy. Hopefully it's not too bad for you guys. Okay, let's continue on. NP vals assign numerical values of the data frame df using the attribute values. Okay, so df.values. Create new array of base 10 logarithm values, np vals underscore log10. So we can use the NumPy method log10, store the value np vals. Okay, so it says pass np vals into the NumPy method. The NumPy method tells me that I need to do np dot. Okay, the method is log10, so I need to do np dot log10. So that's how you understand it. And then you pass it into the method, means that you pass it as an input. So it goes in between the parentheses, open and close parentheses, open and close brackets. You store the results in np vals underscore log10, which is correct. Create array of new data frame by passing data frame into df into this. Okay, so we're gonna do np.log10 df. Print the original and new data containers. Okay, run the code. Wait, no, what is this? Passing df to data frame.log10. Pass the entire data frame into the NumPy method log10, not log. Of course, it's very common to have typos in coding. So don't think that you're the only one when you get a typo. Everybody makes typos. Just try to look through your code, see where there could be typos. Another easy way to fix typos, right, is actually to delete all your code and write it again, or copy some part of your code which is similar over to that part and paste it and change the variable names. Those are a few ways that you can avoid typos or fix typos. Okay, continue. Zip lists. So what does it mean to zip list? Okay, see, we are talking about zipping lists in order to build data frames. If you are new to Python, lists are groups of objects or lists of objects. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 5 maybe. Then there's another list which is like maybe A, B, C, D. Contact. So A, B, C, D, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 5. If we zip these two lists together, what happens is you get something like 1A and 2B, and then 3C, 5D. Right, this is something like what you get if you zip these lists together. Okay, so let me just comment these guys out. To comment out code, right, you select your code. Okay, select all your codes that you want to comment out. Comment out means you don't want it to be read by the computer. You hold Control, you press the question mark, which is the /. Another plane, let me mute for 1 second. Really high air traffic. I'm surprised there's so many planes flying now that the coronavirus is still going around. But anyway, yes, let's continue. Yes, so here is what happens when you zip the list. Okay, so let's follow the instructions now. The instructions say zip the two lists, list keys and list values. Okay, so to zip, you use the zip function. The two lists, so list keys, list values. Usually you have a space in between after the comma. Space after the comma. Oh yeah, to comment out the code, you hold Control, you press the question mark or the /. It comments out the code. To uncomment out the code means you want the code to be inside there, you hold. Do the same thing again. Just keep pressing your comment or uncomment. It toggles whether you comment or uncomment. Okay. Okay, let's continue. Inspect the zip list. Okay, print. That's done for us. Build a dictionary with the zip list. Okay, so to do that, we use dict. Okay, it should be okay. Build and inspect the data frame from the dictionary. pd.dataframe. This is how we normally create a data frame. It's using pd.dataframe. Another plane is flying overhead. Apologies for the heavy air traffic today. Data. Okay, looks like I did something wrong. Inspect the list into one list. Zip the two lists into one list. Did you call list? List of key value tuples. Okay, so I need to print. Do I need to do this? Or no? I think it's this one. Did you correctly define the variable zipped? Expected something different. Okay, list keys, list values. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, maybe I've used the wrong syntax clearly for zip. So let's, inside this Python shell here, you can do zip. You can do help zip. You see zip object. You zip the object. It returns a tuple with the ith element, blah blah. Zip the two lists. Oh, right. I'm supposed to turn this into a list. Right. That's what the instruction says here. So it's easy to miss out things like this. So the first instruction says zip the two lists together into one list, and then be sure to convert the zip object into a list. To convert it into a list, to convert it, use the function list. If you're doing it yourself, you can see all these instructions here. Okay, make use of the list function. List function, so you use the list function, you pass this output into list. Yep, so that's that. So I don't think I need all this nonsense here. And I submit my answer, it should be okay. Right, so we turned this into a list, we zipped, we printed out, then we turned it into a data frame. All right, coolio. If anybody else has any final questions, please do ask them in the chat before we close off the session for today. There's only about a few more minutes left before 2 p.m. Seems like there's still people joining us. Welcome, but we'll be closing off the session soon. You can still catch the playback of the entire session on YouTube. We are going to be sending out we won't be sending out the session, the videos. You can get the videos on the forum post, on the Makerspace forum. You go to the Makerspace forum here, look for community events, share AI community events, AI4I AMA live stream. All of the stream videos will be saved on YouTube here for you to look at all of the sessions. If there's any Q&A, we will also put the Q&A in a Google Sheet for you guys to check it out. Yes, and also we have a new Discord channel. Make sure you join the Discord to connect with your fellow AI4I learners. Okay, and you can also ask questions there and clarify any concepts there, and so on and so forth. Yep, hope you guys are having a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. Labeling your data. Let's do this as the last exercise before we end the session. If anyone has any last questions, please do ask them. Labeling your data. Create a list of new column labels with year, blah, 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 blah. Assign it to list labels. List labels. Assign it to list labels. So we want to do df.columns. Alright, so if you do df.columns will give us A, B, C, D. So these are the names of the columns. Names of the columns is A, B, C, and D. Alright, create a new list of columns. Okay. Alright, no. So I want it to be right, I want it to be year, artist, song, chart weeks. Yeah, in chart weeks. So this will be the list. So the list has 4 items, 1, 2, 3, 4. Each item is separated by a comma, and then everything is encapsulated between the square brackets. Right, and then now this is the list. This will be df.columns. And then we can submit the answer. Wait, this is not correct. Assign the list of labels to the columns attribute df.columns. Did you create a list with the given labels? Year, artist, song, chart weeks. Chart weeks doesn't have an underscore. It's a space. So we submit answer. Again, I mean a typo. It's very, very common in programming, so no worries. We'll submit answer and everything's correct. Okay, it's now 2 p.m. If you guys have any feedback or special requests for next session, you can also put it into the forum topic. Another thing you can do is head to our live session. You can post your questions here. You click on post your question here. Click on it. It brings you to a Google form where you can ask your questions, and then I'll answer them in the next session. You can, even if you don't come for the next session, you can check it out in the video that we post after each session. And again, the videos will all be posted here on the forum topic. Okay. Thanks everybody for joining in for our AI4I AMA live session number 4. Hope you guys can join in our Discord channel, our Discord server, and have a great time continuing on with your AI4I course. I've been Yisheng here, and thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful Wednesday afternoon ahead. Bye.